an individual does not feel that they deserve any platitudes for something that they've been told exactly what to do and how to do it, then you might as well have done it yourself.
Welcome to King Moves. In chess, the king moves one step at a time, but that single move can change everything. Each week, we explore mindset shifts and simple actions that could lead to the next breakthrough in your business and life. I'm your co-host, Ethan King, from Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money.
And I'm your co-host, Justin King, no relation to Ethan, from Cape Town, South Africa, entrepreneur, speaker, and business growth strategist. Our journey crosses continents and cultures as we think out loud, challenge assumptions, and uncover the small moves that create big momentum. Welcome to King Moves. Let's start the conversation. All right, Ethan. So today I thought we should have a chat about addictions, and not addictions necessarily in the sense of addiction to substances, but this is addictions in the workplace. And in my experience working with entrepreneurs, working with business leaders, working with executives, with managers, one of the things that so often comes up, or the statement that I hear so often is, I just do not have time, or I do not have capacity, or my team does not have capacity. And when we get into that space, I think it's so important for people to take a step back and just analyze, are there any addictions that I currently have in the way that I work that are possibly fueling this challenge that I have? And if we take a step back, are there small changes that I can make to some of these addictions that are actually going to free up a huge amount of time for me? So I've got 4. It'd be interesting to hear if you've got any that you think should be added to this list, but I've got 4 that I wanted to run through today that I think is going to be of value. So addiction number 1 is the addiction to devices. And that may seem and sound like a very obvious one, but when I'm speaking about addiction to devices, I'm not necessarily speaking about addiction to social media, although that will be part of it, but it is more a case of being addicted to always being on, always being available to your team. And this is problematic when we're speaking about, and Carl Newport coined the term deep work, but if you're wanting to do deep work and really get deep into analyzing a challenge for your business, or working through a something that requires deep thinking, you need time to get into the space in order to do that. And we cannot multitask. And addiction to devices, addiction to always being on, means that you're always receiving notifications, whether that is your phone that is pinging, whether that is a laptop notification that you're receiving in the top right-hand corner, bottom left, whatever it is. That is distracting you. That is providing a little bit of dopamine each and every time you're going, oh, squirrel. But it moves you away from focusing on the deep work that you're needing to do. And it means you have to reset and start again and again and again. That which is going to take you traditionally 2 hours to do ends up taking you 4 hours to do, just because of this addiction to your devices, this addiction to always needing to be on. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the addiction to busyness. So again, I see this far too often. We have an addiction to business rather than an addiction to productivity, although there could be an addiction to productivity, and we've spoken about productivity purgatory before. But busyness is a sense of, I must have a full calendar. I need to have every 30 minutes or 15 minutes of my calendar needs to have something in it that's not necessarily high leverage. If we think about Eisenhower matrix, it's not necessarily important and urgent, or it's not necessarily important and not urgent. Those are the things that we're working on. But it's all the other things. It's just the urgent things. It's the things that people are shouting the loudest for. It's the notifications with our devices that we've been receiving. So it's just this busyness. It's this chasing of our tail. And it's easy to think that if I'm busy all day, if somebody asks me, hey, Justin, how's your day been? And I get to respond, busy, I think that I'm being adding value and that I'm being productive. But that is a difference between just being busy and actually getting things done, actually getting the most important things done and across the line. So addiction number 2 is busyness. Addiction number 3 is addiction to being needed. And this is an interesting one. So often, a lot of us have our value tied to helping people, leaning in, always being the one that everybody is coming to. And if we have an inability to let go of some of that work and an inability to delegate some of that work, we really get caught in this trap of never having enough time, because I need it to come to me, because this gives me this real sense of being the go-to guy, being the go-to woman, and just being needed by everybody in the organization. So be careful of an addiction to being needed. It's wonderful to always be assisting individuals, but at what cost does that come? And the 4th addiction that we need to be aware of and just cautious of is an addiction to control. And addiction to control means that unless something is done exactly the way I want to do it, unless something is done absolutely in my eyes perfectly, if somebody is going to do something slightly differently to the way that I would do it, I'm not willing to hand it over. I'm not willing to let go of some control. The flip side, of course, is that when we give people opportunity and we do let go of some of that control, it may be done differently, but it may be done even better than the way that we would do it ourselves. So always needing to be in absolute control is a handbrake on your ability to be productive, and a handbrake on your ability to free space and elevate yourself while elevating your team to take on more responsibility as well. So those are the four, just in a nutshell. It's addiction to devices we've got to be careful of, addiction to busyness, addiction to always being needed, and addiction to, what's the last one? Addiction to control, hanging on to control. So don't know what you think of those four. If you've seen yourself in any of those before, or if there's anything that you would add to that list.
Yeah, 100%. So, with devices, I've gotten pretty good about turning off notifications. That's my default is notifications off for every app. I think the only one that I have notifications on for is text messages. So if it's really urgent and it gets through, but then, even then, if I have my phone on do not disturb, then I still won't see it until I go in there. But I do. But the funny thing about that is I find myself, whenever I'm waiting for something, my default is to pick up my phone and go to social media or check email, even in the slightest thing. I mean, it's good if you're waiting in line somewhere, or, I find myself even doing it like at a red light, like in any 30-second spot I have, or if I'm downloading something on the computer and I need to wait for the file to finish downloading, if it's a big file, I'll pick up my phone. So that's where I see the devices coming in. It's like, wait, maybe I should just put it in another room or something like that so that I'm not sucked in. Because the minute I go on, like, let's say if I want to edit a caption on social media, I'll go into Instagram to do that, and then I just get sucked into all this different stuff. And now 10 minutes has went by. So I try to stay off of social media and have someone else do that for me. But sometimes I have to go in there, and it's just a quick time suck. And with the busyness part, yeah, I love to see white space on my calendar. Unfortunately, it does fill up a lot. But one thing that I do is I keep certain days, like Mondays, which is we happen to be recording this on a Monday, but I keep those meeting free unless I want to have the meeting. So Mondays are like my free and flexible days to do what I want and not have other people like jump on my schedule and things like that. Being needed, definitely an interesting one. So I'm at a point right now where I've stepped back more. I've stepped back from Zeus's closet in the day to day, and Monica has leaned in and started working on that because I'm doing all this other stuff with the speaking and the books. So it was interesting because that shift at first I felt like I was losing a piece of myself because I wasn't needed as much, and I think that really ties into the control part of it, because I'm used to like making the decisions and having the final say so. But if I'm not around, that I was the bottleneck to so many things. And I think we see that with a lot of entrepreneurs where that control is causing you to be the bottleneck. That's really slowing things down in your business. And yeah, you might feel like someone else can't do it as well as you can, or, call the shots as well as you can. And you know what? You might be right. But sometimes it's good to be okay with 80% to get it done. What is it done is better than perfect, right?
100%.
So what I found what works for me is like, I tell my team, like, don't even run it by me. Like if you don't want to slow it down, like just publish it, just put it out there. Because if you run it by me and say, hey, what do you think of this, Ethan? I'm going to have some changes, because it's my personality. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to have, I would put a different twist on it, or I'm going to have some opinion. So those 4, I think, are spot on. If there's another one that I think of, it's one that I hear from a lot of people who've sold their business, and they lose this sense of status or identity. And I think that is an addiction that we have, and a lot of times we don't even realize it as business owners. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and it was an EO event, and and there was a guest there who I'd never met before. So I was speaking to this young lady, and it's like, what do you do? What do you do? And I said, oh, I own this company called Zeus's Closet. And I was about to go into what we do, but she already knew. Zeus's Closet. She was like, "You own Zeus's Closet? Oh my goodness. I got my sorority line jacket from there when I was in college. Oh my goodness, that is so cool." And I mean, it was like kind of this, oh wow, kind of this mini celebrity status through the brand, not me. And that's kind of cool to be identified with that. And I hear from a lot of business owners who sell, like once you sell your business and you no longer have that part of your identity, especially if you've been running it for decades and now nothing, then that really it's caused depression in people, and it's a huge blow to the ego. So that would be a fifth one that I would add.
I like that. Absolutely. This addiction to status, your ego. If it's not in a self-serving way, not in a self-serving way. But you made me think of two other points as well, not to add to the list, but just to expand on some of those points. One being control. And a way to look at that, and I can't recall if we've spoken about it before, but Dan Pink speaks about motivation being driven by autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And where I see control coming in is that element of autonomy. So what we need to do as business owners is not give up control, because that's why I think a lot of business owners get terrified by this word autonomy. Give people autonomy, because they think you're just meaning give them free reign. And what we're really saying is give them an element of control, and I'm going to use control and choice. Give them an element of choice in how they're going to execute or how they do something. So allow them to control that aspect of it. That's really powerful in giving up some control. You don't have to give them all the control. You can point them in the right direction. You can tell them exactly what you're wanting them to execute on, but then let go of control around how to do it. So you can do it in bite-sized pieces rather than just free reign, handing over full control and losing control of an element. I think that's really an important differentiation to make. And then the other one is, and this is where I think people will say, cool, Justin, the great list, but devices and always being on, it's a requirement. Being needed and being busy, that's kind of a requirement. And it's a tricky one, because I think in today's day and age, especially when we've moved to kind of knowledge workers, and even more so with moving to remote work, productivity kind of gets muddied with visibility. In order to be seen as being productive, you need to be visible. And how are you visible? You sending emails during the day, sending emails late at night, making sure that you're responding to your Slack message or your Teams message as soon as it comes through, or iMessages or WhatsApp or whatever it is. So your visibility almost becomes your default to saying, hey, hand up, I'm actually working. I'm being productive at the moment. So it's a tricky one. I get it. And that's why people do fall into that trap. So we've got to move away from this idea that being visible is proof that I'm working, and rather saying, call it the visibility of my results needs to be proof that I am working or was working and being productive, because that's the trap. That's the other trap that people fall into. So I suppose we could call the devices and busyness kind of being addicted to visibility. And are you addicted to visibility? And how can you move away from visibility by responding to messages to visibility by delivering results? That's more important.
Yeah, for sure. And something you said about control there made me think. I have a keynote coming up in Las Vegas about AI and leadership. And one of the main things that we talk about with AI is, well, if you're giving a prompt to ChatGPT, we know that the more context you give it, then the better your results will be. But there is a line where if you give it too much context, then now you've filtered the results, and it's only going to stay within whatever you tell it. So there's an art to communicating with an LLM where you give it its parameters and say, for example, you are a social media expert, and I want you to write a 200-word Instagram caption to go with this photo, and then upload a photo, and then let it do its thing. So it's really the same thing when it comes to communicating with humans, right? So if you want to give control, you're not completely letting go, because you've given these certain parameters. As long as you stay within these guidelines, then you want the other person to use their own intelligence to fill in the rest. Just like we want AI to use its own vast intelligence to fill in the rest of the details. Because
100%.
otherwise you're like squandering someone's growth and showing their capabilities and their potential if you just put all of these parameters on and then they're just kind of executing this, they're just pushing it over the finish line for you, but it's really your voice and your ideas.
Yeah, it's that freedom within a framework. They still need to have freedom to make some decisions themselves. To your point that you're making now, an individual does not feel that they deserve any platitudes for something that they've been told exactly what to do and how to do it. Then you might as well have done it yourself. Your team member wants to feel like, I got pointed in the right direction, but I still had to figure out this and I had to make a decision around that. So the results that we got from this, large part of that's on me. And I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that. And I'm going to be proud of that. And that's really, really key, really important. All right.
So what's the king move that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
Next time you catch yourself feeling that you just don't have any time, you just have no capacity, take a deep breath, take a step back and look at those, I'm going to say the 5 elements of addiction and say, what's happening as far as my addiction to devices, always being on, always responding is concerned, and where can I make a change? What is happening as far as being addicted to busyness is concerned, and where can I possibly make a change? What is happening as far as being addicted to always being needed? Is that where I'm seeing a lot of my own value or my self-worth? Where can I make a change? And where can I start letting go of control? What control am I addicted to? It doesn't mean giving free rein, but can you give somebody some element of choice around something that they can do for you? And then the last one is, am I addicted to status in any way, or is the ego holding me back and keeping me in the weeds in certain areas when I could be elevating myself? And that's actually a great last line with regards to being needed, control, all of that is elevate yourself to elevate your team. That's key. If you get past a lot of these elements to your team, they're going to be elevated, and you elevating yourself beyond the day-to-day busyness, the day-to-day weed, and that's going to give you that extra boost that you need to be more strategic in your business.
I think that's great. Well, let's leave it there.
Amazing. Thanks, Ethan.
That's a wrap for today's episode of King Moves. Remember, in chess, like in business,
one right move can change everything.
Take today's action step, make your move, and build momentum.
If you found value in today's episode, share it with someone who's ready for their next breakthrough. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our weekly conversations. Until next time.